Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry for the delayed start of about 8 minutes here as we were dealing with some technical issues here at the State Bar Center, but we're all squared away now, and I'll just call this meeting of the Child Support Commission Technology and Calculator Subcommittee to order. Latana, if you want to review the rules and explain how we're going to conduct business today, I'll then go through a few introductions as we move along the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Regina. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Latana Lawrence, and I'm the program coordinator for the Georgia Child Support Commission. And I will briefly discuss a few rules to help us navigate the meeting today via our Zoom webinar. The Technology and Calculator Subcommittee members and staff are designated as panelists within Zoom and can speak at any time during this meeting. All other participants are designated as attendees and are muted during the meeting, but may type a message in the Zoom chat feature if needed. The Child Support Commission does not hear public comment during any of its subcommittee meetings. Accordingly, we will not be accepting public comments today. However, you may leave a written comment for the commission at any time through the commission's website. For your convenience, I will put that web address in the Zoom chat shortly. Also, anyone wishing to give public comment by speaking may do so at any full Child Support Commission meeting, which the next one will be held on August 23rd, 2024. In conclusion of today's meeting, staff will post a recording on our YouTube channel, Georgia Child Support Commission. And I will also place our YouTube channel in the chat for everyone. Thank you, and I will turn it back over to Regina.
Well, thank you very much. And for those that may be watching later, not necessarily with us today, I'm Regina Quick, and I'm privileged to chair this subcommittee on behalf of the members of the Georgia Child Support Commission. I will note right away, first of all, Judge Bolden, thank you for being here. So I'm not having a meeting just with myself. Today, we obviously do not have a quorum necessary for voting purposes. So the minutes from our April 5th, 2024 meeting, which was our last meeting of this subcommittee, will be distributed to members for further review and e-vote. Of course, they were previously submitted by staff in advance of today's meeting. Before we move to old business, I would be remiss if I did not recognize that at our last meeting, we had a rather conspicuous absence, at least to me, when Deborah Johnson was not here with us. Sadly, that was because of a decline in her health. And I could probably count on one hand the number of child support commission related meetings that she has missed over her very long tenure here. But Deborah passed away on May 18th, and of course she was an attorney with Atlanta Legal Aid for 30 years and well known and respected by not just all of us, but statewide for her expertise in Georgia family law. Deborah certainly gave of her time and energy and great passion to support the work of the Georgia Child Support Commission in various capacities, most recently on this subcommittee. So we remain very grateful for her input and her many contributions on behalf of the citizens of Georgia, and she will certainly be missed. Back to the agenda. On the old business, of course, at the last subcommittee meeting, the changes to Schedule B were discussed, and those changes were unanimously approved to be recommended to the full commission. The purposes of those changes, just to review, was to add clarity, and is to add clarity and improve the instructions when a user adds a pre-existing order to the worksheet. Additionally, the subcommittee discussed the addition of a juvenile court case style for worksheets, and the case style addition was unanimously approved by the subcommittee. Both of these changes were presented to the full commission on April 19th and were unanimously approved. In addition, the juvenile court case style was brought before the Council of Juvenile Court Judges On May 5th, Noel went down there and made a presentation. It was very positively received. And staff is working to implement these changes. It's anticipated that those changes are also going to become effective on July 1st. Noel, is there anything you need to tell us about your foray down to the conference and your presentation and interactions with the Council of Juvenile Court Judges?
It went well. They were really appreciative. I would say that's the major takeaway of having us take steps to tailor something to their needs. So.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to do something for them. They certainly work very hard. I know all of them do not do child support matters very often. Some of them don't do them at all, it seems, but the ones that do it a lot. And so this will be a great help, both in the way they do their work and the way they manage their work, but in the presentation of their product to litigants and judges and other courts that then have to look at those orders. So appreciate everybody's work on that. All right, to our new business then. We're going to discuss the changes that are necessitated by the passage of Senate Bill 454 in the last legislative session. So Kurt, if you'll just introduce yourself briefly, and I'll turn it over to you to discuss the rollout of the calculator changes.
If I just interject for 1 second, I want to just note that we do have Judge Warren Davis on with us also. Tony, could you possibly change the view so it's you're not hiding non-video participants? Because I'm not sure why we're only seeing Anna. It's lovely to see you, Anna, but you're like, there we go. Okay, yes.
Judge Davis, good afternoon.
I think you might be on mute.
Judge, you're muted.
Judge Davis, if you're talking to us, you're on mute, I think.
I see that now. I'm used to
Yes,
my
sir.
But no, I had a rare day off, and so I'm actually at Lake Hartwell. My criminal calendar crashed, so I always hate missing these meetings because I really appreciate the work y'all are doing. It makes child support better for everyone.
Well, we appreciate you. And did I also notice that at one point, at least before our technical difficulties, Legislative Counsel Holly Carter was on with us. So we appreciate all of her work, and I'm sure we will have more to say about her fine work as we talk about Senate Bill 454.
Yes.
So Kurt couldn't have been done without her, that's for sure, as we know.
All right, well, good afternoon, participants. My name is Kurt Bryan. I am the program manager for the Child Support Collaborative Project between the Child Support Commission and with DHS and the Administrative Office of the Boards. So pursuant to provisions of Senate Bill 454, there's mainly two changes that are going to impact the calculator come July 1st. These changes are scheduled to be rolled out at 12 a.m. on July 1st, and you can bet that I will be up. I will be testing these when these roll out at 12:01 a.m. just to make sure that everything's good to go. But I'm going to talk a little bit about those changes. So, all right, and if you would go to the next slide, please, Latara. So the first of these changes is an updated basic child support obligation table, which includes raising the table's vertical axis, which is the parent's combined monthly gross income, from $30,000 to $40,000. And if you can see on this worksheet, parent 1 and parent 2 each have a gross monthly income of $20,000, making the combined monthly adjusted gross income $40,000. So that is the top end of the new basic child support obligation. I will say that this worksheet is not live, what's out there right now. This is within the testing environment. Everything that we do on the calculator has to be thoroughly tested before it's rolled out to the general public. So this is a screenshot from the testing environment. So I want to make that very clear. But once again, this updated BCSO table was approved by the full commission and the economic subcommittee. And as of July 1st, 2024, any new worksheet created will use this new table. If a user has an existing worksheet and they wish to utilize the new table, they will have to copy their existing worksheet and the new table will then be utilized. Messaging for this change is already up on the public calculator website, instructing users that if they had a worksheet created prior to July 1st and they want to utilize the new table, if they've got actions still pending, all they'll have to do is copy the table, open it up, and the new basic child support obligation table will be utilized. So that is the first change. And we can stay on this one more second. The second big change is the addition of the VA, the Veterans Affairs Benefits provision. A new line on the worksheet will be added under line 12 and before line 13, which of course causes the renumbering of some lines. But as you can notice, we've now got the final monthly child support obligation amount as line 14 instead of line 13. And if you look right above 14, that's where you'll see the Veterans Affairs disability payments. And this will essentially function much like the Social Security payments to the children, and it'll be a $1 for $1 decrease to the final child support obligation amount. And to implement this change, there will also be an additional field, and if you'll go to the next slide. And this is the basic information worksheet tab. There will be an additional field 16B right under Social Security retirement disability payments, where we'll enter this on this tab. And once again, this is the $1 for $1 match that functions the exact way the Social Security does. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the calculator modernization project. Our IT team shared with us, I believe it was last
Kurt,
week.
let me stop you for one quick second before we move on to the modernization project. I'll just ask, anecdotally, if any one of our participants or anyone in the room is really hearing anything or any questions or concerns about the changes that are effective July 1, which again are just the VA disability recognition and mirroring that to Social Security disability treatment and the new table, other than the entry of the order issue that we've heard about. And I will, just to share this with the subcommittee, we have received some questions / concerns that judges and attorneys may, and maybe pro se litigants, maybe most of all, may not be aware that they're submitting an order with child support calculated under the old table, the old basic child support obligation table, that would be signed and become effective after July 1st, which would be the new calculations with the new basic child support obligation table. So I don't know how anybody else feels about this, and this certainly is nothing official from the Child Support Commission, but I have been recommending to folks that they simply try to make sure that the judge's office does a non-protunct if it appears that in this time frame of busy calendars, which includes some vacation times and perhaps judges filling in also who may not be doing this every day, that they make sure they ask that the order be entered non-protunct to June 30th, if it is in fact submitted to the judge prior to July 1st, that they make sure, just like practitioners do in December, when they're trying to get something finalized by the end of the year for tax purposes, that they make sure that if it's signed after the first of the year and it was submitted prior to December 31st, that it is not protunct back to December 31st. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts, or if either of our subcommittee members that are present has received any questions or concerns about the changes that do go into effect. All right, hearing none, just raise those up as you hear them. And again, just a reminder that staff is always available to schedule and conduct trainings for your local bar associations, and that may get more important as the next round of changes are more significant substantive changes are implemented in the calculator.
You know, do you want to show the announcement on the website for a second?
Sure.
I could do that. Tommy,
Yeah.
if I
If
have
we
the
want to
website
go to
pulled up.
the calculator public website, the announcement came online this morning.
Right, there was an announcement from the state bar also to the family law section that came to my email, at least as I arrived here. And I noticed, Anna, that our chair in the Western Judicial Circuit just resent that to everybody for emphasis. But here's the announcement that's been placed on the commission website.
And so for anybody who's caught up in this transition and has created a worksheet, but then isn't submitting it until after July 1st, all they have to do to get the new BCSO number is not start a new, I mean, certainly they can start a new worksheet altogether if they wanted to, but they could also just make, if they've already inputted all the data, they make a copy of the old worksheet. The old worksheet will stay the same, the new worksheet will pull from the new BCSO table, so you'd have both.
Right.
I have a question. So there's the new worksheet created at field that gives the date and time. When we copy the worksheet that way, is it going to show the new date that the worksheet was copied as that date that shows on the worksheet?
Yes, exactly. And we wanted it to be obvious on the face of the worksheet, whether it be created before or after July 1st. That's
Correct.
another big change we should
Right.
do. I think it's good. There's a new field on the worksheet saying created date.
Yeah.
Previously, when you printed the worksheet, there would be the date and time that it was printed, but that's not necessarily helpful.
No.
So there is a new field at the top of the worksheet showing when it's created. And what's happening really when you use that copy button in the calculator, it's really as if you're making a new worksheet that's auto-populated. It's really, so it functionally in the guts of the calculator, that's what's happening behind the scenes. So it will prompt, so it'll be clear to judges, especially that these are the new BCSO numbers. Nobody has that entire chart memorized. So, okay.
Yeah, that I guess for a while will be what judges will need to look at to see, especially again for the pro se litigants, but just in general, to make sure that it was created at the right time after July 1st.
Yeah, and this will be a good way to where they can quickly look at it. Oh, you know, it's after July 1st, we're good to go. So, but I can say that I've done thorough testing on all of this, both the VA piece and the new BCSO table. Everything's working perfectly, so I have full confidence come July 1st that everything will be rolling out. And if not, it'll be 12:01 a.m. I'll be pulling my hair out.
Well, I was going to say, we'll hold you to that, and this is being recorded. But hopefully these changes have not been significant enough to the calculator that we're going to have any functionality bugs. So we're going to all be hopeful about that, and that's our anticipation based on what's happening in the testing environment, for sure. All right, moving back to the agenda, I think, Noelle, this may be something either you or Kurt can address, but of course the official kickoff of our calculator modernization project did occur on April 1st, 2024. That was right as we were meeting last. So in the meantime, it seems y'all may have identified some issues for us to be considering, thinking about, working on that you might want to call to our attention.
Yeah, and I think Kurt was going to, because we've gotten some new stuff in very recently. He's going to start with a brief overview, and then I'm going to get down to some nitty gritty.
All right, great.
And we're pulling up the PowerPoint right now to show what's being called the wireframe of it just a little bit.
Can you enlarge that just a little bit at a time?
So, and obviously, this is not live, but this is actually essentially a little bit of a framework of what the calculator modernization will look like a little bit.
That's okay.
Sorry, it's a little bit small. We can't see it too terribly well, but in general, this will be the basic information worksheet tab. This looks, a bit more modern, a bit more up to date. The functionality, anyone that's previously used the calculator, if they look at this, functionally, I don't think they're going to have any kind of an issue with it. But just wanted to kind of let people know what it will look like a little bit. This is obviously not set in stone, but just kind of a little bit of a taste of what it's going to look like and what the vision of it is currently. And if you want to go to the next slide, Tom. And this is in general what the actual worksheet itself would look like. Again, just a little bit cleaner. Again, very similar to what we've currently got, but just as a general rule of thumb, very familiar to anyone who's used it previously, but just looking a little bit cleaner.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Is
ahead.
it still going to show for the, oh, that's like a generated worksheet.
That's a generated worksheet, yes.
Okay, never mind.
And actually, to be honest with you, this is it's probably not even a generated worksheet because I don't think they've gotten that far yet, but they probably put numbers in these fields. But yeah, in general, this is what it will, somewhat look like, just to kind of have a general idea. So we're not reinventing the wheel here, just to let the subcommittee know. But, and now with that, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some potential enhancements.
Yeah, so there were just a couple of things, like when we're getting really down into the nitty-gritty of the calculator, that we just wanted to raise to the committee if we could. The first is on the basic information worksheet tab. When the action is a modification, in field 9, we ask them to put the date of the initial order, and the instructions say the little question mark next to field 9, and I'll read it because I think it's helpful. It says, if this is a modification action, enter the date the first child support order was entered between the parties to this case. That will be considered by the court for modification. Subsequent orders resulting from modification are not considered. And I just thought that was interesting. Should we consider changing this language? Would a prior modification not be considered, and they would just jump back to the initial order? I just want to be clear myself on what that should say. Should there be room to maybe put the initial dates and other subsequent dates of modification?
Yeah, I think that was intended. I can't speak to who built that, but I think it was intended to make sure that the judge knew how many orders could easily go back to the beginning with the parties. But you're absolutely correct that that's not the order that's being modified.
Right.
That would not be the order being modified. So we probably do need to think about cleaning up that language and making it more precise. And then my further question about that though, is about the block. Would the block permit the several dates? Because some of these folks have been before the courts every 2 years or so after the initial date.
And Judge Davis raised his hand.
Yes, Judge.
I have a comment on that, that I personally don't find the first order, particularly with our repeat customers, to be helpful. Because I'm really looking for the order I'm modifying. The most common example is the first order might include 4 children. And now the 3 of them have aged out. So I've got a new case with only 1 child. So first case number, I think it's confusing because I'm not modifying the first case. I'm modifying the last child support order.
Right.
That's exactly why we're
Yeah,
raising it.
exactly.
It just struck me as odd. I'm like, this is just odd. But perhaps there was a good reason why it was done, I'm sure. So we'll look into it. It would be great if we could list all of them, let folks and do the date of the initial order and any subsequent modifications. But I think at the least it needs to just be based on the order in effect.
Right, because not everyone will attach the orders as
Yeah.
exhibits for the court's consideration, and they or their staff attorney or staff might need to go looking for it, so. Certainly, they need to identify the most recent, the order that's being modified.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? If not, I'll just jump to the next.
Well, Anna Bowling,
Oh, yeah.
posted in the chat.
Yeah, Anna put in the chat, I would suggest a field to enter total number of orders and a field for the date of the most recent child support order. Okay, we can
Yeah.
consider that too. All right, so we'll work with this
Sure.
and look into.
But I'm sure the new calculator will be able to do this if we ask it to.
Okay, so our next topic is also on the basic information worksheet tab. Down at field number 17 is where we ask the parties to enter the future uninsured healthcare expenses percentages. I do know this issue has already gone back and forth. The calculator used to be programmed to put in the parties' pro rata shares down there to be overall income shares friendly. Because in general, the calculator, and in the statute for that matter, we're an income share state, we divide, we split expenses based on the pro rata share of the party's income. But we have it blank, and so a lot of folks were like, oh, okay, we just put in 50-50. And so we see a lot of 50-50.
Yeah.
And so we're just wondering if, should we have it default to the pro rata share and then folks can override that? Or do we leave it blank knowing most people are just gonna throw it?
So Judge, I'd be interested if you're still with us for your take on that. It being blank helps not steer the discussion one way or another with pro se litigants or otherwise, but it also potentially results in worksheets being submitted that are blank and don't match what's been done in the order. So
Right, that's an excellent point, but it just remains blank and then the worksheet
it remains blank. So I don't know, Judge Davis, Judge Bolden.
Well, so I like it being blank, but just like how you have to put in the reasons for a deviation in Schedule E, if you could force someone to put the number in before they can generate a worksheet, I think that would be helpful. Because I'm always handwriting it in because I forget. But I think it's better for it to remain blank. But that seems like a good solution to me.
Maybe like make it a required
Yeah.
field that they.
Right.
Yeah, required field.
Just before the worksheet can be generated at the very end.
Right, because we want them to be able to move off of the basic information worksheet tab because their pro rata percentages will change from downstream things,
Right.
adjusting the gross income or whatever have you, but.
Well, I'm trying to think functionally. So you need the number of children and you need the income to generate a worksheet. So, but if we needed that, you would have to be on the income tab. If you were on the income tab, you enter the income and then you just hit, display worksheet results. So it would then take you back and say, well, but until you view the worksheet, you wouldn't even know what the pro rata share is, would you? If you had something in Schedule B, and then the adjusted gross income, changes, you wouldn't know what the prorated share is until you actually view the worksheet results.
Yes, which is why it would be really helpful if the first page and the Schedule E page showed whatever the pro rata calculation is based on whatever's been put in up to that point. If it would just display that somewhere on there, that would be very helpful, because when you're doing the dental and vision things, you need to know those numbers to do the math for those special deviations. So if it would just show that without having to generate the worksheet and then open it back up and put it back in.
Okay, well, yeah, duly noted. We'll work on that.
I'm really thinking outside the box here, but with building the new worksheet, it's going to be able to do a lot. I mean, as you're flipping through these schedules, this is just a theoretical idea off the top of my head. But if you had something at the top that gave you your pro rata shares once you entered income, and it had a potential presumptive amount of child support, and as you move through the schedules, you added your deviations to each party, that number was continually changing. Much like how TurboTax works, it shows you what your federal refund is going to be, what you may owe to the state, and as it gains more information, that number continues to change. Just an idea, maybe a silly idea, but the calculator would do it.
I think that practically that would be very helpful.
Certainly is something we could lift up to the technology team to determine whether or not A, the calculator could do it, and B, if so, what would it look like on the other schedules? Where would you place it? What would the design look like?
Okay, this is awesome. So what I'm hearing though is we don't want it pre-filled to steer them one way or the other.
Yeah.
We want it to not allow the worksheet to sort of, it needs to be inputted before a final worksheet is created or whatever, how we do that. Make it a required field somehow that before you finalize the worksheet, that needs to be. Because then we'd avoid that issue of having it just blank altogether. What does that mean? So, okay. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, now I'm gonna go to my last thing. I even forget what it is. Oh yeah, this one is actually the one that makes me the craziest. So, under the basic information worksheet tab on 14A, which is how you add a child. So it's one of the most basic things you do in the calculator, adding children and adding income. So when you're adding a child, as you're adding the child, there's this child status bar, and you either click included or excluded. And we're constantly telling people, always leave it included. So do we need to have this included, excluded part right here? We're questioning in what circumstances would you be simultaneously adding the child and immediately excluding them? So I also talked to our dear former colleague, Elaine Johnson, about it, and she said it was a way to allow practitioners to just see what would happen, what the child support would jump to if you excluded a child when they aged out. It's just really for people to play around with it. I think that's best done as a copy, to not do it here, because what happens is somehow some people accidentally click the other radio button and can't add children. It gets really weird really fast. So we're thinking about.
I think we have to keep that button for two scenarios that I can think of. One is when you're doing a split parenting plan and you're running worksheets because one child lives with one parent and the other child lives with the other parent. And I mean, yes, we generate another worksheet, but that's when I use it for that. And then also, if a child is going to age out and they're 16, and so you're doing double worksheets because of a step down, then you just do
right,
it.
But I would think that you don't exclude them immediately. I would think that you make a copy and remove the child, because there's another function.
Just remove them completely.
To remove them completely.
Right.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Okay. Any other thoughts on it? But you're exactly right, Anna. I mean, I do think like that's one of the reasons why this was, it's just as weird at this juncture, on this screen
Right,
and at this
yeah.
point in the calculator, because there's just leaves room for error. Because what you have to do is make sure both kids are in there, and then you can jump back and exclude them, but I don't think this is a good place to do it. I think you should just use that remove functionality.
But doesn't it also serve the function of when you share the worksheet with the judge? So that they don't have to build a worksheet from scratch, they could just exclude, if they were doing a split parenting order, they could just go then, we're excluding that child and I'm finalizing this worksheet. And then they do it the other way and save it. You see what I'm saying? It allows you to create potentially 3 different worksheets from one worksheet by then just pressing a button and saving. Or copying. Once you've done those calculations, you can, that's what I would sometimes use it for, is just, let's run these scenarios, or let me be lazy and just use the same worksheet for creating my new worksheets. Knowing I wasn't making any mistakes with re-inputting or anything like that.
Right, right. All right, I'm gonna play around with it a little bit more. I do still think you can do those same things with just the remove. Remove the child, but maybe then you can't add them back in.
I think that's right.
True. Yeah.
Maybe that's it. But okay, I'm still gonna look into not having it where you add it though, have it be somewhere else, include or exclude. I'll look into it more.
It does sound like there's some functionality to it, so.
Yeah, I expect there'll continue to be some things like this as you work through upgrading and modernizing the calculator. Any room for improvement, we can always discuss, for sure.
And I will say, Noelle and I, we did go through their, it was kind of like the vendor's like scope of work of what they're gonna do. We dug through it pretty thoroughly. And these were some of the areas that we were like, this is odd, like this is just an odd duck that's kind of here, but by and large, we didn't find too many, but I'm sure there's some that are gonna pop up along the way, but yeah.
Well, members of the committee, if you have any other thing you would like to consider for new business, or alternatively, anything you would like for staff to look into as we assess the timing of the next meeting?
So once this goes live at 12:01 on July 1st, that means we will not be able to access the old basic child support obligation at all, other than through a worksheet that was created before that date. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
End of an era. And to be honest with you, our IT team kind of initially suggested to us that everything within the calculator that's ever been done, any saved worksheet back from 2018 or 17 or whenever, everything would have changed to the new BCSO table, all of it. And meaning if you opened up an old worksheet and we said, whoa, Nelly, that might wipe out some records that some people might want to get into at some point. So we told them, no, don't do that. But we did think about, what if you've got a worksheet started and you're still waiting on maybe the daycare expenses for the month to average it out, kind of thing. You haven't completed it, you haven't submitted it yet, and it's 7/1 at 12:05. What happens at that point? We don't want to just take all of their information and update it automatically for them, but we, take them is the easiest way possible to create a new worksheet that'll carry over all of their info with the new table.
So the only potential problem there can be there is if a judge or judge's staff were working on a worksheet from a hearing that was held prior to July 1 that they intended to be non-pro-tunc, but they were not finished and had not printed it out. Are they going to lose that worksheet?
If they created the worksheet before July 1st, and then they go in and they open that worksheet back up, they should still be able to, because they're not creating a new one.
No, but they would be finalizing it, finalizing a new one. Let's say it's a work in progress. They're working on it, they're doing calculations just like what you're talking about. And they haven't quite gotten to the mandatory adjustments or the specific under consideration as to whether or not to deviate, and if so, in what amount on a non-specific deviation, let's just say.
So if the worksheet was created before July 1st.
But not finalized.
It's still always gonna pull from the old table. There's now sort of two
Gotcha.
tables
Yeah.
embedded in the calculator.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, but there is no going back after July 1st. You
Yeah.
can't start a new one.
Any new worksheet created
Yeah.
after July 1st is going to use the new.
Pull from the new. All the old existing ones before July 1st are always gonna pull from the old.
Yeah.
At first, IT was just having everything update, and we're like, no. You know, that would have been a total.
So
disaster.
I would think we would need to give a heads up and notification to the judges on their sidebar. And all of their about that, and maybe practitioners too. I wouldn't think it would,
I
wouldn't think it would, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, I think we tried to communicate that in what was just sent out to the panel last session, and that exact same message was sent to the Council of Superior Court judges.
Okay.
Shannon Mother said he was sending it by email and putting it on sidebar.
Okay,
But yeah, anything old remains old forever. You only get new by creating a brand new one or copying the old.
okay. All right, well, I expect we'll have some questions about that during the month of July.
That's right.
All right, well, for that reason, I will probably look to some potential meeting dates in August, and just have staff help me look at that, because there may be some things we have to deal with as a result of everybody's experience in July.
Yeah.
Yes, Judge?
I had one other question, which is the parenting time adjustment that's coming. So my understanding is that's going to go into the Schedule E block that was held open. But is that going to be something accessible before July 1st of 2026? Is that going to roll out with this new calculator, or is that delayed until sometime later since it doesn't go into effect for 2 years?
Schedule C, right?
Schedule C, yeah.
Schedule C, not E.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I said C. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
It'll go to Schedule C. So to clarify, are you saying will it be available prior to the rollout?
Can we practice? That's what she's saying.
Can we practice?
Can we work on it, see how it's gonna go, make the calculations?
Well,
Is that what
I'm
you're
just,
saying?
well, so I guess I wanted to know if it's going to be available with the new rollout on July 1st of 2024, because I suspect that even though it's not, okay, good. I just suspected that even though it wasn't binding, that some judges might be looking at that. And so I was just sort of wondering.
Yeah, and I've already received, a few questions and a few phone calls from attorneys about that. And I said, well, to be honest, they say, oh, can we see, a copy of how it works? I said, well, the math is in SB 454. If you know the parameters of what it's asking for, you can do the calculation on your own to get the parent time adjustment. You don't necessarily need the calculator for that. But as I told him, I said, quite frankly, it's not been built yet. It's not in there to be used. So that'll be, luckily with the modernization project happening when it happens this year, it'll be much easier to build into and implement, because implementing it into the old calculator would have been challenging, to say the least. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Exactly, and then, so we've got the July 1st deployment, and then we have two things going on in parallel: the modernization of the calculator and the creation of the parenting time adjustment and the low income adjustment. And we're gonna have them code that directly into the new calculator, not somehow shoehorn it, because the old calculator won't be being used by the time the effective date for the new adjustments become live. But we hope to have that, as soon as the modernization is complete, and then the coding for parenting time adjustment and low income adjustment, we hope to be able to beta test it with, a small group of folks and run it, test it greatly, to say the least. I don't know how to-
My vision for the parenting time adjustment, once they go on schedule, we'll see, and I know it's a lot of language in SB 454, but really, you're only gonna have to enter, one thing. You're gonna have to enter the number of overnight days that parent B has, or the non-custodial parent has, and that'll be it. Because it's gonna auto-populate what the time is for the other parent, and then it's gonna pull from the income tables and the income data, and it's gonna give you the parent income adjustment, and that's gonna be it. So it's gonna work well.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? Well, thank you to my committee members for your input and your time, and we will stand adjourned at 2:54 p.m.